Garbage. It smells bad and looks disgusting. Most people think about trash only when they take it out. People in the US should be thinking about garbage more. However, because they throw away 40% of all garbage in the world, it may seem easy just to toss whatever we have finished using in the dumpster. But our wasteful ways have terrible consequences for our environments. The solution to this problem is recycling. Or is it? Is recycling the best way to preserve natural resources and to reduce the cost of processing garbage? Or does mandatory recycling needs to be justified? In his lead essay, Professor Munger states the organization with the cheapest means of enacting change and who have the best chance to reconsider packaging of all kinds, whether it's liquid, food, products, or microwaves, are the manufacturers and retail distributors of the products we buy. I agree and also add that consumers can enact change by the purchasing choices they make at the register, signaling to the producer their preferences. In discussing the multiple cost scenarios for landfills, Munger says that maybe recycling does cost more than landfilling. But Munger forgets to mention one vital aspect. Manufacturers can't get enough recycled glass, plastic, aluminum, steel, and paper. Americans are buying and burying and burning valuable commodities that will likely lead to a scarcity sooner than we'd like to believe, as said by environmental reader and quelling CEO's fear around raw material prices with EPR. A recent white paper asserted that Americans are buying $11 billion worth of goods per year that could be used for remanufacture, said by Conrad McCarran in his book Unfinished Business. Will we realize our error in the future and be mining these pits to dig out the valuable commodities that were so easily discarded? A robust economy is great for many components of our society, but downside is that all of the stuff people buy during these uptimes needs somewhere to go at the end of its life, and their growing management costs now make a sizable portion of a town's or a city's budget. I read Munger's wrap-up with great interest and head nodding. He hits the nail on the head when he concludes, at present, no one is responsible for disposing of packaging, and so the state does its fumbling best to try to solve the problem. The solution is to reconsider responsibility for disposal at the level of initial production. A property rights system that assigns disposable responsibility and ultimately liability to the manufacturer would encourage the effective market incentives to reconceive the very nature of waste itself. And that might be wasteful than recycling old ideas that threaten to bury us under a mountain of garbage. Munger is advocating for extended producer responsibility, EPR, a legislative form of product stewardship in which the producers of a product finance and manage the recycling of the product at end of life. Some businesses are using the term producer-driven recycling, so I will use them interchangeably here. Ideal EPR programs are designed, driven, and financed by industry, leaving government in an oversight rule. Munger asserts that recycling itself is already subsidized, and he is right. By taxpayers, in the form of EPR that I support, there are no costs to the consumer of the time of disposal. This addresses the fact that many people will choose to put something in the trash or throw it in the woods instead of paying a fee for disposal. Take a ride through the woods in a rural area to see the proof. The second argument in favor of recycling is that even if the stuff isn't valuable, it's cheaper to recycle it than to dump it in the landfill. Recycling, including the cost of collecting the waste in tiny, mixed amounts, transporting the waste to a handling facility, sorting it, cleaning it, repackaging it, and then transporting it again. Often for great distances to a market that will be buys that the commodity for some actual use is also almost more of always more expensive than landfilling that some waste in the local facility. The problem is clear once we come to understand the problem of price in landfill space. If there are only two alternatives for the waste, landfill or recycling, then landfill should be priced at the sum of the opportunity cost of the space used for a landfill and the externalities and cost of managing pollution resulting from landfill disposal, as said by Don Fulton in Garbage, Recycling, and Illicit Burning or Dumping. In these circumstances, the price comparison would be valid. If the recycled material costs less than the full economic cost of landfilling, then landfilling would be economically justified. Said by Thomas Kinnaman. That alternative is illegal dumping, illicit burning, or other extra legal free disposal. The problem is that these alternatives are only free to the illegal dumper or burner. The impact on society can be horrible. One solution would be to police illegal dumping or burning very aggressively. We try to do this, but convert dumping is easy. And burning in rural areas is hard, really very hard to police effectively. Another solution, the one we generally settle on, is subsidizing landfill disposal. In effect, we charge for less for landfill disposal than its actual cost society. Unfortunately, landfill disposal is actually quite expensive in terms of actual economic costs and externalities, yet because dumping is also very expensive. The optimal implied subsidy is large enough that the price we charge for landfill space is negligible, said by Don and Thomas. People such as Frank Hyman, a garden designer and former city council member, argued that they had paid for yard waste collection with the understanding that the city would reuse it because it was valuable. That's my expectation, and I think that that expectation would be the most from everyone, said by Heman. A lot of people may be angry when they hear the city is shipping the yard waste to landfill, but there's a windswept spot overlooking Los Angeles called Purinta Hills, where you can stand atop a mountain of trash 500 feet. The broad plateau in its summit is large enough to hold Dodger Stadium with plenty of room for parking. It is the country's largest active landfill. Most of the 130 million tons of waste buried for eternity beneath its humpy slopes could have been recycled. Purinta Hills then serves as a perfect symbol of where we are as a nation on the waste and recycling front. An immense geographic feature constructed of largely avoidable waste built by an American public that makes 7.1 pounds of trash per person every day, yet recycles only about a fourth of that world-leading amount of garbage. Read by Matt Dees in Durham's Waste Streams Mangle. The Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, tells us that the largest single component of our landfill contents consists of packaging and containers, which are, at least in theory, 100% recyclable. 1 out of every 100 pounds in the U.S. landfills consists of the highly recyclable and highly subsidized type of instant waste we call junk mail. Also read by Mike Dees. For a country so supposedly committed to recycling as a go-to response to waste, America is really quite bad at it. Japan and most European nations run rings around the U.S. on the score. The question is, why? The answer lies not in the same old trash talk that's been used against recycling for decades, that it's too costly, or that it can cause as much environmental harm as landfilling, or that it has become some sort of unreasoned article of green faith rather than grounded in some hard science. Such arguments obscure the real barrier to recycling success. For it to succeed, recycling must be repositioned as America's last line of defense against waste, not the leading one. There are far more efficient, profitable, and environmental beneficial strategies among them. Packaging reduction, life cycle engineering, and replacement of incentives for wastefulness with ones that hold manufacturers responsible for the waste strung by their products that they create. So, recycling in short is better than nothing, but nearly good enough on its own. And that, my friends, is why mandatory recycling may be justified. We can't change disposers the economically correct price for the legal alternative, landfills, because then many of these will resort to the legal alternatives, for instance, dumping or burning. Recycling is environmentally justified if it is costly, well, less costly than true total social cost of landfill disposal. But we cannot actually change that price for landfill. So we underprice landfill space and then try to persuade people to divert as much waste as possible from the landfill. If recycling costs less than the invisible true price, consequently, those who have argued their unaided markets can handle this problem are at least partly wrong. For instance, the markets, well, really for the markets to work, we have to get prices right. But prices are distorted here against recycling. Although for good reason, we want to avoid random dumping. So the answer to the required recycling, even though it seems more expensive because recycling may be less than the true cost of landfill disposal.